So, howdy. I'm Peter Warburton. Howdy. I'm not using the reverse screen for the video on this. I'm using direct. So I can't really tell. I couldn't really tell looking this way if you could see me, but hey, I'm Peter. So I thought this would be a good time, as good a time as any. I will take you all, an audience, such that you may be, through the restoration of this model. This is a model of Flying Cloud. It's got pretty good age to it. I can see that over the years it's had some restoration done to it here and there. There's a few new blocks here and there. And whoever the original author was that did it was very good. Proportionately, it's very good. The scale is relative scale. Spars and masts and rigging is all quite well done, and it's hard to say if this was a kit. It was maybe an early kit, an early Model Expo or Model Shipways way back, but you know, it's definitely old. I'm gonna give it a cleaning. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take you through the restoration of this model. The head rig is adrift, the jib boom's adrift, the martingale and all the head rig under, above and below is adrift. So we're gonna have to fix all this. We're gonna clean the main deck. Gonna oil it. We're gonna make the repairs. There's some repairs to the longboat that need to be done here. The rear after thwart has come adrift from the longboat, and the longboats, they seem to have moved it up on deck here. And it's just kind of laying there in the way now. The mizzen boom is laying on deck. Well, that needs to be replaced. The foretop gallant mast from here up, it's really the foretop gallant mast and the fore royal mast. This was adrift, not completely off, thank God. It wasn't adrift, but it was sprung, let's put it that way. And it was very loose, so I have a feeling that it's pinned. I think it's been broken before and it's been repaired before. And I think there's a pin in the bottom of the last person that fixed it. There's a pin in the bottom of the cross trees that go into the top of the mast there. That's what it felt like to me, because thank God it didn't come adrift. But I did notice it was loose, and then the more I investigated it, the more I saw it was pretty tough. So anyway, I fixed that yesterday. That's the first thing I had to do. You can't do anything with the top gallant masts or any other of the masts adrift. This lower course yard, trying to figure out how to take it off. I mean, I know how to take it off, but I'm trying to avoid possibly taking it off. It's broken in half, and I'm not really sure what's holding it together, but yeah, it's clearly broken right there. So I'm just trying to figure a way where I'm going to be able to fix that without having to remove it, and that's going to take a little That's going to take a little doing, I do believe. I would prefer not to use, I don't like to use super glues or crazy glues, and sometimes it's necessary. You want to be very careful with that shit, pardon my French, because, you know, it leaves things brittle and you don't want to get it on the lines, and once it's done, you can't undo it. And if you do it wrong, it's makes it tough. Somewhere I have my little spring clamps. I haven't sat down here at my ship model table for some time, but the owner of this model is a good friend of mine and a former employer of mine and a longtime family friend, and so I told him I'd do the model for him. So anyway, I'm going to take us through the cleaning, how I go about fixing all of this and saving as much as I can possibly save while doing it. What you don't want to do is get into where, you know, you're creating a lot of unnecessary work for yourself. So you got to be careful when you're working around it. You got to be careful during the restoration that, you know, you're working over here and all of a sudden, you know, you pull your hand away and don't wear your watch. Take your watch off. Seriously, take your watch off. You know what I mean? You're over here doing something and your watch snags something and you go back like this and now you've ripped the mast down because of your watch. All right. I'm over here now. I'm over here now, baby. So let's not be hypocritical about it and take the watch off, okay? So you can hang your watch there. That way you keep an eye on the time that you're spending on your on your project, okay? Leave it on the timesheet. I got a work list. I got a timesheet over here, okay? And we have a clock on this real-time video recorder, which I believe is recording, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you through the restoration and how I go about this. Now, I'm not saying it's the way you should go about it or the way anybody else should go about it. I'm just going to show you how I go about it. I go about it in the same way that if they took me by my shirt collar and they picked me up and they swung me over here and they dropped me on deck and said, "You're the chief mate, oversee this." This is how I would do it on the real ship. Not that I have experience in flying cloud, but I do have experience on traditional sailing ships. You know, from small to quite large. I do have a week at sea on the U.S. Coast Guard bark Eagle, in fact. I'm one of the few civilians that has been aloft on Eagle. I went up on the foremast, and she had split topsail. She had another topsail here, so she had a lower topsail and an upper topsail. And I went out on the fore upper topsail. And that was as high as I cared to go. And I really kind of did that out of peer pressure. I was a guest on the boat with a bunch of other trainees from the Black Pearl, and my father had organized us to be able to go. He was friends with the sailing master. The sailing master said the only civilians allowed aloft are the crew of the Black Pearl. They're allowed to go aloft, accompanied with safety harnesses and accompanied by professional Coast Guardsmen on the ship. But I was the oldest in the group. You know, I was 27 or 28, and I was the oldest in the group of kids. Now, see, now here's a bad lead. That's chafe right there. Ooh, I don't like that. I'm not changing it. So anyway, you know, they were like, "Oh, come on, old man. Come on, Pete. Come on, Pete. Come on, Pete. Let's go loft." I didn't really care about going to loft. I've been aloft enough in my life. But I went, and everything was huge, and the hop from the Ratlins here, the yards were braced up. We were on a starboard tack going to windward, so the yards were braced far away from the Ratlins that I was on. I was on the windward side, and I literally had to get airborne to get from here to the foot ropes. Ooh, there's no foot ropes on this model. I better talk to the owners, see if they want foot ropes or not. That's a project. So anyway, that was scary, but I made it, but it was scary. So that's the drill. And I wish I could put this on a continuous loop on one camera and just speed it up and edit it all for YouTube later, but I don't know. I might be able to figure it out. I do have a new video camera, a couple of them over there, so I might be able to do something. But right now I'm just doing it on the old telephone. So, okay, so Flying Cloud. She's 27 inches on deck. She's 37 inches overall. And I want to say she's 27 or 8 inches high. About 12 inches thwartships with the longest main yard right here. And I think out in my garage, if my measurements are all correct, and I believe they are, I'll get a more exact measurement when I get the bowsprit back in place and the mizzen boom back in place and everything rigged. I think I have a case in the garage that it's going to take this model. I think it's perfect. I think it could be the perfect size. And if my measurements are correct, then it will be the perfect size. So anyway, that's the program. And what I'll do is clean the main deck. I don't use a lot of detergents, anything much stronger than my own spit. I don't use. I try not to get it too wet. And we oil the deck with a golden teak oil, Amazon's golden teak oil. That's no relation to the Amazon. Different thing altogether. And you know, we'll clean all the spars and oil all the spars and try not to make a mess of the whole thing, and I'll show you how we go about it. I'll clean and dust the paintwork, but what we don't want to use is any real detergents or anything. And you know, it's got good age to it, and it's got a good patina of age all over it, and I don't think you don't want to send it back with all bright white paint like it's all just been freshly painted and everything. We don't want that. We want it to hold its intrinsic antique value and look like an antique that's been restored as it should look. But not brand new. It's not, you know, we're not going to paint all this white, and we're not going to, you know, use harsh detergents and wet it all down and scrub it all off, and it'll all come up white, and it won't look nice. We're going to dust it, oil the bright work and the main deck, bright work, varnish work, natural wood, and do the rigging. And the rigging takes time, and this is very small rigging that they used here, and I have to try and match this. And I'm not as young as I used to be, and neither are my eyes. See, these are, that one's glued. So these, okay, all right. So that's the plan. And welcome aboard. I hope I don't bore you to tears. I'll probably think of some good stories while I'm doing this kind of thing. This is a pile of rigging. And you probably wonder, why the hell is he hanging on to that rigging? Well, this is all remnants of last jobs with new rigging, and it's cuttings. Well, I saved the cuttings because good rigging line is hard to find. So I keep it in a rigging bag over here. In case I need a little spare piece, then you don't go cutting it off a new roll. I got, all kinds of sizes and colors and tones there. So anyway, I don't waste that stuff. At least I try not to. What I don't want to do is bore people to tears. I'd like to see this as, helping somebody else, how to go about, maybe on these social media groups, ship model groups, there's a lot of people, oh, my grandfather, these came out of the attic, and my dad built them 40 years ago, and they need a lot of work, and I've never done this before, and any advice would be helpful, how to go about it. I'd like to fix it. I've never worked on a model ship before. And although I'm of the belief that you don't have to be a sailor to make a good ship model and understand what you're doing while you're doing it, but it certainly helps. It certainly helps to have real life sailing, shipboard, and square rigger experience. If you're doing this, is a bonus. I happen to have square rigger experience. My father owned a square rigger that I grew up on for the first 27 years of my life, which, by the time I was 23, I had my captain's license and was running his boat for him. And other traditional sailing vessels as well that I've sailed in over the years. And then I got interested in ship models as a kid because I was fascinated with them. We were at the museum one day in Boston and looking at ship models, and I was glued to one of the Constitution, as I recall. It was the Constitution. And I said to my father, I said, I was like 12. 8th grade, I think I was. And, I'd been building some, plastic models for a few years, cars and, stuff like that. And, a couple of battleships or something. But I'd never really tackled a sailing ship. And I was fascinated by these ships in the museum. And it was hard to get me out of the ship model room anyway. And finally I asked him, I said, I'm like, Dad, how do they do this? You're looking, you're like, how do they do this? And I'll tell you what my father said. He looked at me and he said, well, why don't you try one and find out? And I thought, oh, okay. That's some sound advice. And shortly thereafter, I went to the hobby shop in Newport. I remember to this day, and I bought my first model, and I bought the model of the Constitution, the Revel kit, plastic, I really did it. I knew I could handle the plastic part because I've been building other plastic models for a few years, and away at boarding school and stuff. I was in the model club and all that. So it's in my yearbook. In fact, I was looking at the yearbook recently. It said I was president of the model club. I don't remember that. Anyway, but mainly I did it to see how I had, handle the rigging. Then in my early 20s, I started building wooden ship models, and then I had a good friend in Newport who I used to restore. He had an unbelievable collection. He had models like this in his basement. He must have, if there was 5 down there, there were 50, all in different states of disrepair. So I was his main restoration guy. I get done with one, I bring it to him, back to him. He pays me. We go down. He'd pick another one. He went, here, do this one. Okay. And that was a good gig. That was in Newport. That was my friend Ken Gates. And Ken kept me busy and I got a lot of experience restoring antique, broken down ship models during that time. And it helped me a lot. And the money was good. And he had a ton of them. And he was selling them. So that was a good time. I enjoyed that. That was my, I guess I was in my 30s then. So anyway, I guess I've done enough talking, and the next video will be getting to work. Unfortunately, usually I play some sea shanties or something, but my computer over there is down, and all my music's in that computer, and so anyway, it's sort of the only source of music that I have, so that's out of commission. And usually I have the TV going, but I don't want to have that going while the video's recording. So I'll try to tell some stories and keep everybody entertained and explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how I do it. And hopefully it won't be too boring. First thing we're going to start with is the head rig, like I said. I prefer to cut it with as little of that away as possible. Anyway, so here we are, Warburton model shipbuilders, Flying Cloud, restoration, introduction. Cheers, thanks for tuning in. Back soon.